The Variety report being like, of course, what would you do when you have this narcissistic nightmare trying to ruin a film?
It has proven to be Disney's worst investment ever in the history of Disney investments. I mean, they've gone through various scandals with this girl.
If I'm Bob Iger, you know what we're doing? Emergency meeting. We're putting Snow White on hold for 2 years, and guess what?
Smart.
Pay her a couple $1,000,000, go away. We're gonna bring another person to play this role.
The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story. With a guy who literally stalks her. Yeah. Weird.
She has this underlying anger and hatred in her that always has to take it like one step too far.
This is Rachel Zegler, who Disney decided would be brilliant in casting because, as Rachel Zegler says, her millions of fans will line up no matter what she does. Look at this acting.
That at every premiere and everything I do, people will wait in line to see.
When Disney announced Rachel Zegler as their new Snow White, fans were initially thrilled. After all, she had just dazzled audiences in Steven Spielberg's West Side Story. Her performance left a lasting impression on critics and viewers alike, earning her widespread acclaim for her effortless soprano and natural charisma. It seemed like a perfect match. Rachel's talent appeared to align seamlessly with the timeless grace and beauty associated with Snow White. However, this initial wave of excitement was short-lived, as backlash quickly emerged. Detractors began voicing concerns that changing the defining descriptor of Snow White's skin tone risked stripping away an essential motif of the original story. To many traditionalists, the phrase Snow White wasn't merely descriptive. It symbolized something intrinsic to the character's identity, an embodiment of innocence and purity tied directly to her physical appearance. They argued that altering this aspect could fundamentally change how future generations perceived the beloved princess. On the other hand, supporters countered that Snow White need not be confined to literal interpretations of pigmentation. Instead, they suggested it could represent broader concepts such as purity of spirit or the wonder of first snowfall, ideas that transcend specific racial or ethnic boundaries. This perspective resonated with those advocating for greater representation in Hollywood, highlighting the opportunity to create a more inclusive version of the classic tale. The debate soon spilled over into social media, where it gained unprecedented momentum. Memes flooded timelines, poking fun at both sides of the argument while fueling further discussion. Hashtags sprouted faster than dandelions in spring, each one signaling a user's stance in the growing digital culture war. Some rallied behind hashtag #NotMySnowWhite, expressing disappointment in what they saw as unnecessary changes to a cherished icon. Others embraced hashtag #LetRachelShine, celebrating Disney's decision as a step toward progress and diversity in storytelling. As the conversation intensified, it became clear that this wasn't just about casting. It touched on deeper issues surrounding tradition, inclusion, and artistic license. The controversy highlighted the delicate balance studios must strike when reimagining iconic stories for modern audiences. For every fan excited by the prospect of seeing themselves reflected in a beloved fairy tale, there was another clinging tightly to nostalgia, reluctant to let go of the past. In the midst of all this noise, Rachel Zegler found herself at the center of a storm she hadn't anticipated. Despite the mixed reactions, she remained steadfast, acknowledging the weight of expectations placed upon her shoulders. In interviews, she expressed gratitude toward her supporters while pleading not to be dragged into nonsensical discourse. Her message was simple yet powerful. Every child deserves a moment to imagine they could inhabit fairy tale royalty, regardless of their background. This clash between tradition and innovation set the stage for one of the most polarizing projects in recent memory. As anticipation built for the live-action remake, it became evident that Snow White's journey would no longer be just about escaping an evil queen or finding true love. It would also explore themes of identity, agency, and belonging in a rapidly changing world.
I'd say that
This is one of Disney's biggest regrets ever. I mean, I checked, we've discussed it before. I checked Rotten Tomatoes, and the score is even lower than the last time we talked. Other movie companies are going to look at her and they're going to say box office poison. And a lot of this is due to her behavior leading up to the film's release.
Uniquely unlikable, but then it is actually a terrible film as well. So it's the double whammy.
Eggs sprouted faster than dandelions in spring.
And then they couldn't put dwarfs because this is just so typical of the left. The progressives always finding a way to find their way back to doing something not progressive. The controversies surrounding Disney's Snow White remake show that we are still in the thick of the culture wars. And then Rachel Zegler plays Snow White. I think Gal plays the... I was not a child, so I don't follow that. And Rachel Zegler, being 23 or whatever she is, like so many kids raised on TikTok, she's all for infantada is the only global solution. So the two stars hate each other. And then they couldn't put dwarfs left. The progressives always finding a way to find their way back to doing something not progressive. You'd think the most progressive thing would be get people jobs, and dwarfs want to work.
Disney's live-action Snow White remake has undeniably emerged as one of the most polarizing projects in recent years, sparking debates that go far beyond the world of cinema. It's not just about reimagining a beloved classic. It's about the clash between timeless nostalgia and contemporary values. As audiences grapple with how much tradition should be preserved versus how much can, or should, be updated, all eyes are on Rachel Zegler, the young actress thrust into the heart of this cultural storm. Her casting was initially celebrated, but as controversies surrounding her comments, creative choices, and even broader societal tensions bubbled up, the conversation shifted dramatically. Now, more than ever, people are asking, what happens when an iconic fairy tale collides head-on with modern sensibilities? The answer lies in unraveling the complex web of drama, criticism, and passion surrounding Rachel Zegler and Disney's ambitious yet fraught attempt to reimagine Snow White for a new generation. Let's dive deep into the story behind the headlines, exploring why this project has ignited such fierce debate and what it reveals about our evolving relationship with classic stories.
This golden employment opportunity for dwarves.
There's not that many scripts that come down the pike.
No, there's 7 of them.
That has, and there's 7 dwarf jobs.
Literally no offense to anything. They're very proud to cast a Latino actress as Snow White. It makes no sense to me. You're progressive in one way, but you're still making that backward story of 7 dwarves living in a cave. What the are you doing, man?
They're remaking the movie. They just got rid of the dwarves. Okay,
but what do they call them?
Why would they get rid of the dwarves, though?
Magical creatures.
But they have one token dwarf amongst these magical creatures.
I think it was Peter Dinklage said this is, this is not right. This is demeaning. And they were like, what? We just want to work. We're dwarves.
Can you tell us a little bit about your version of Snow White?
Yeah, Snow White is the girl you remember, but she's definitely made for the modern age, and there's such an emphasis on what it really means to be the fairest of them all. For Snow White, it's coming to terms with finding herself and finding her inner voice and finding a sense of agency so that she can be a just ruler and a wonderful queen, because there's another one in town.
The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Weird.
As launch day approaches, anticipation builds, but so does division among potential audiences. Polls indicate a complex mix of emotions, curiosity mingling with skepticism, excitement clashing with doubt. Some moviegoers admit they're curious despite the controversy, reflecting a well-documented phenomenon where negative press can sometimes perversely drive interest. These viewers, intrigued by the drama surrounding the film's production, see it as an opportunity to witness history unfold or simply marvel at the spectacle of modern reinterpretation. Others, however, remain steadfast in their decision to skip the film entirely, citing respect for the original Snow White as their guiding principle. For them, the classic holds sacred status, untouchable by contemporary reimaginings no matter how ambitious or well-intentioned. This polarized reaction underscores the broader cultural tensions that have swirled around Disney's live-action remake. On one hand, there are those who celebrate innovation, applauding efforts to bring fresh perspectives to timeless stories. On the other hand, traditionalists argue that tampering with beloved classics risks diluting their magic, betraying the very essence of what made these tales resonate for generations. Caught in the crossfire is Rachel Zegler herself, whose journey through this tumultuous process has become a microcosm of 21st century celebrity. Her experience reveals just how perilous fame can be in today's hyper-connected world, where a single misinterpreted quip, a fleeting moment taken out of context, can overshadow years of hard work, dedication, and artistic growth. In an era dominated by social media algorithms and clickbait headlines, public perception often crystallizes at lightning speed, leaving little room for nuance or second chances. What started as a promising career milestone for Rachel, an exciting new chapter following her acclaimed performance in West Side Story, quickly spiraled into something far more complicated. Each interview, each comment, became ammunition in a larger cultural battle over tradition versus progress, representation versus nostalgia. Through it all, Rachel's story serves as both cautionary tale and fascinating case study, a reminder of the immense pressures placed on young artists thrust into the spotlight and the delicate balancing act required to navigate the treacherous waters of modern celebrity. Whatever verdict audiences ultimately reach about the film itself, whether they embrace it, dismiss it, or sit somewhere in between, one thing is clear: Rachel Zegler's experience will be remembered long after the credits roll. It will be dissected by scholars, analyzed by marketers, and debated by fans. And perhaps, most importantly, it will serve as a lesson for aspiring performers everywhere, a guidepost for where conviction ends and caution begins in an industry increasingly shaped by the unforgiving glare of public scrutiny. So, as we reflect on the whirlwind surrounding Disney's live-action Snow White remake, one question lingers in the air. Is this controversy a necessary reckoning with nostalgic gatekeeping, or has it spiraled into an overcorrection that stifles creative frankness? The debate rages on, with passionate voices on both sides arguing their case. On one hand, there are those who see this moment as a vital opportunity to challenge outdated norms and bring fresh perspectives to timeless stories. They believe that reimagining classic narratives is not just valid but essential for connecting with modern audiences who demand representation and relevance. On the other hand, critics warn of a slippery slope where reverence for tradition gives way to ideological agendas that alienate longtime fans. They fear that tampering too much with beloved characters risks erasing the very essence of what made them special in the first place. As the lights dim and the theater falls silent, all eyes turn toward Rachel Zegler, the young actress stepping into the iconic role of Snow White. Her performance will either vindicate the bold choices made during production or deepen the divide between traditionalists and progressives. As curtains rise and the first note of a reorchestrated overture floats through the dimmed hush of the theater, history watches intently. Will this adaptation be remembered as a triumphant chapter in cinematic innovation, one that successfully marries nostalgia with progress? Or will it become a cautionary tale about the perils of straying too far from the source material? For now, the screen flickers softly, casting its glow across eager faces and skeptical expressions alike. Audiences settle into their seats, some curious despite the controversy, others resolute in their boycotts. In this pivotal moment, a young actress steps into legend, not just as Snow White, but as a symbol of the ongoing struggle between honoring the past and embracing the future. She carries with her not only the promise of innovation, but also the immense weight of a beloved story that has captured hearts for nearly a century. History will ultimately decide whether this uproar marked a necessary evolution or a misstep born of misplaced ambition. Scholars will dissect it, marketers will analyze its impact, and aspiring performers will ponder where conviction ends and caution begins. But for now, as the music swells and the narrative unfolds, we're left wondering, is this the dawn of a new era, or merely another chapter in the endless tug-of-war between progress and preservation? Thumbnails across platforms screamed sensational headlines like Rachel Zegler calls Prince creepy, or Disney's new Snow White cuts romance. The backlash grew exponentially as viewers speculated wildly about what this comment might mean for the character of the prince in the upcoming film. Some theorized that his role had been drastically minimized, perhaps reduced to nothing more than a fleeting cameo appearance. Others went even further, suggesting that the prince might have been excised entirely from the narrative, a move that many perceived as yet another example of Hollywood prioritizing progressive ideals over staying true to the source material. This speculation only added fuel to the fire, with fans dissecting every detail of promotional materials released so far. Trailers and teasers focusing on the evil queen's mirror chamber notably omitted any scenes featuring the prince, leading to increased scrutiny and assumptions. Every frame was analyzed, with viewers measuring rumored narrative cuts against the trickle of official images. As the debate raged on, the assumption hardened that the prince's presence in the film would either be severely diminished or completely erased, leaving audiences divided between those eagerly anticipating a bold new take and others lamenting what they saw as the dismantling of a cherished classic. Complicating matters further were labor strikes that swept through Hollywood, casting a shadow over numerous productions, including Disney's highly anticipated live-action Snow White. As picket lines formed under the blazing sun, Rachel Zegler found herself at the center of yet another storm. During interviews conducted amidst the strikes, she spoke candidly about the pressing issue of compensation for streaming residuals, a topic that had long been a bone of contention in the industry. Her words resonated deeply with union members and supporters, who praised her for articulating the plight of younger actors navigating an ever-evolving entertainment landscape. They saw her as a voice of reason, someone willing to stand up for fair pay and recognition in an era where content consumption had shifted dramatically toward digital platforms. However, not everyone shared this perspective. Critics, quick to seize on any opportunity to paint Rachel in a negative light, swiftly reframed her comments. Detractors portrayed her as demanding and out of touch, suggesting that her expectations were unrealistic or selfish. Social media became a battleground, with clips of her remarks circulating widely, often edited to omit crucial context. A single sentence, delivered earnestly during a heated moment on the picket line, could suddenly transform into a soundbite weaponized against her. This pattern solidified over time. Any statement Rachel made, no matter how politely or thoughtfully expressed, carried the risk of being reinterpreted as evidence of arrogance or disdain. Union listeners hailed her for championing the cause of artists whose work often went undervalued in the age of streaming. Some even described her as a trailblazer, someone unafraid to tackle uncomfortable truths about the industry's evolving economics. Yet outside these circles, skepticism lingered. To some, her advocacy seemed less like leadership and more like entitlement, an image amplified by those eager to capitalize on controversy. The duality of public perception only deepened, leaving Rachel caught between admiration from one camp and derision from another. It was a reminder of just how precarious fame could be, especially in an age where algorithms favored sensationalism over nuance. As the weeks passed, it became clear that every word she uttered would be scrutinized, dissected, and debated ad nauseum. Even casual observations about working conditions or pay structures were twisted into narratives that suited various agendas. For Rachel, the experience underscored the complexities of modern celebrity, where authenticity could quickly turn into ammunition in the court of public opinion. Despite the backlash, she remained steadfast, continuing to advocate for what she believed in while tempering her approach with increasing mindfulness. In doing so, she hoped to strike a balance, honoring the craft she loved while navigating the treacherous waters of fame. Despite the chaos unfolding in the public eye, behind-the-scenes efforts on Disney's Snow White remake showcased an extraordinary level of craftsmanship that truly honored the legacy of the original while pushing boundaries into modern territory. Artisans dedicated countless hours to hand-dye silk organza, a meticulous process aimed at achieving vibrancy that rivals the dazzling hues of Technicolor from the 1937 animated classic. This attention to detail extended far beyond just costumes. Every element, from set design to lighting, was crafted with precision and passion. Rachel Zegler, meanwhile, poured her heart into mastering the lyrical cadence of the original film's iconic songs, working tirelessly alongside vocal coaches and musicians to ensure she preserved their timeless melodies while infusing them with fresh, emotional depth. Her dedication didn't stop there. During rehearsals, she explored new layers of Snow White's character, reimagining her as not only the beloved princess fans remember, but also someone distinctly shaped for the modern age. In interviews, Rachel described her vision of Snow White as the girl you remember, but definitely made for the modern age, emphasizing empowerment, resilience, and a deeper understanding of what it means to be the fairest of them all. This reinterpretation wasn't about erasing the past, it was about building upon it, creating a character who could resonate with both traditionalists and contemporary audiences alike. Through long nights of script reads under lamplight and early mornings spent perfecting dance routines, Rachel remained committed to grounding herself in the craft, ensuring that when the curtain rose, viewers would see more than just a pretty face. They'd witness a fully realized heroine stepping into her own destiny. The controversy surrounding Disney's live-action Snow White remake quickly spiraled beyond mere discussions about casting choices. Conservative commentators were particularly vocal in their criticisms, lamenting what they perceived as Hollywood's relentless crusade to revise classic icons. They painted a grim picture of a slippery slope, warning that if left unchecked, no cherished character would be safe from ideological tampering. Their concerns weren't just limited to Rachel Zegler's casting, they extended to the broader narrative changes being proposed for the film. To these critics, altering even a single element of the original story felt like an affront to tradition and nostalgia, a betrayal of the values that made Snow White such a beloved tale in the first place. On the other hand, progressive voices saw Disney's decision as a long overdue step toward inclusivity. For countless young viewers who had never seen themselves reflected in the traditional fairy tale princess mold, Rachel Zegler represented a new era of representation. By casting a Latina-coded actress as Snow White, Disney was finally offering these children the opportunity to see someone who looked like them in one of the most iconic roles in cinematic history. This wasn't just about diversity, it was about empowerment, giving every child the chance to imagine themselves as the hero of their own story. Rachel herself didn't shy away from engaging with the discourse. In a series of heartfelt tweets, she expressed her gratitude to those who supported her vision and defended her right to bring something fresh and meaningful to the role. At the same time, she pleaded with detractors not to tag her in what she described as nonsensical discourse. Her message was both clear and poignant. Every child, regardless of background or identity, deserves a moment to dream and believe they could one day inhabit the realm of fairy tale royalty. It wasn't about erasing the past, but rather expanding its boundaries so that more people could find joy and inspiration within it. Yet, despite her best efforts to bridge divides, Rachel found herself caught in the crossfire of a much larger cultural battle. The debate over her casting became symbolic of deeper societal tensions, questions of tradition versus progress, authenticity versus reinvention, and whether beloved stories should remain frozen in time or evolve to reflect the world we live in today. As the conversation raged on, it became increasingly clear that this wasn't just about Snow White anymore. It was about how we choose to tell our shared stories and whose voices get to shape them in an ever-changing world. In a series of promotional interviews leading up to the release of Disney's live-action Snow White remake, Rachel Zegler unveiled her vision for the titular character, a princess who boldly charts her own future rather than waiting passively in a quaint cottage. This reimagining reflects what Rachel believes modern audiences crave: heroines with agency, depth, and purpose beyond romantic entanglements. She explained that today's viewers expect characters who take control of their destinies, making decisions that shape their lives independently of external influences like princes or magical interventions. For many fans, this update resonated deeply, as it aligns with contemporary values emphasizing empowerment and self-determination. They saw it as a natural evolution of the classic fairy tale, one that speaks directly to younger generations growing up in a world where gender roles are increasingly fluid. However, not everyone welcomed this shift with open arms. A vocal contingent of traditionalists argued that downplaying romance undermined the timeless allure of classic love stories, which they view as integral to the original narrative. To them, Snow White's journey has always been about finding true love and breaking free from enchantments through the power of affection. One creator on TikTok, visibly impassioned, paused mid-video to deliver a pointed critique, declaring that de-emphasizing romance was nothing short of an affront to viewers who cherish those narratives. They contended that removing or minimizing the role of the prince risks stripping away the very essence of what made the story so beloved for decades. Others joined the conversation, pointing out that while empowerment is important, there's no reason why strong female leads can't also embrace heartfelt connections without compromising their independence. The debate grew heated, with both sides passionately defending their perspectives and accusing the other of either clinging to outdated ideals or dismissing the importance of preserving tradition. This divide highlights a broader cultural tension between honoring nostalgic elements and pushing boundaries to create more progressive storytelling. As Rachel continues to promote the film, she finds herself at the center of this ongoing dialogue, navigating the delicate balance between respecting the source material and introducing fresh ideas that resonate with modern sensibilities. It remains to be seen whether her interpretation will win over skeptics or further polarize an already divided audience. Perhaps the biggest flare-up in the entire controversy surrounding Disney's live-action Snow White came during an interview where Rachel Zegler made a seemingly offhand remark that spiraled into a massive debate. When asked how the remake would update the classic fairy tale for modern sensibilities, Rachel quipped that the man who kissed Snow White in the 1937 animated film could be interpreted as a stalker. She elaborated on this idea, explaining that in today's context, the prince's actions, kissing Snow White without her consent after meeting her just once, might not align with contemporary values around respect and agency. This single soundbite was quickly extracted from the interview, reframed, and replayed endlessly by YouTubers who specialize in capitalizing on controversy. These creators seized upon Rachel's words, using them to fuel outrage among traditionalists and fans of the original story.